Alright, hello everybody, this is Tainted Donut here again with another ship breakdown. Today we're going to be discussing a Tier 5 Soviet Destroyer, and as I usually do, I like to pick ships that are currently in the premium shop. She is currently in the premium shop along with a bunch of other ships for the time being, and I personally think this is one of these ones where she her appearance is very sparse. She's not there that often, so I figured I'd cover this one over all the other ones out there right now. Just in case people are wondering, what is this ship? It looks kind of weird, kind of funky. It's got that really long, slender hull for even a low-tier destroyer. She's definitely interesting. So we're going to dive right into the Okhotnik here. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. I'll be the first to admit my knowledge of the Russian language is not that great. So diving into that armor scheme again, destroyer, so really not much to talk about. We've got the 10 millimeter forend, even the underside, a weird 15, 13, 16 in the center, which might actually generate a ricochet once in a while from a low caliber AP round, but again, not much going on there with that. And then the aft end platings got a 13 millimeter deck and a 10 millimeter on the side. So again, not really going to do much for you in protection category, and let's not even talk about the main battery mount armor. So, but that's not really the peak of her survivability. It's the 12,000 hit points at tier 5, which is a really good hit point pool for a destroyer at that tier. So she's definitely a little interesting in that regard. Again, got a good chunk of hit points, but a good size to kind of counterbalance it out. All right, this is where things start to get really amusing. Notice that that is not some error. That is 7 main guns, 7 130 millimeter guns, and they have a reasonable rate of fire with only a 10-second reload. Because again, we're talking tier 5 here. They do traverse pretty slow, so that is one thing to keep in mind with them. Um, really good fire chance too at 10% per shell, and on 1900 HE, 2500 AP damage. But here's the catch: her AP shells will penetrate. If a cruiser's going to go broadside to you, just switch over and start abusing them. They've got, laser velocity at 861. They do have a bit of an arc, but they get there quick with that velocity. So even the 9.2 kilometer firing range lets you keep well out of reach. You'll be able to dance in and out of detect pretty easy if you engage it the max of your range. So her artillery for a tier 5 is very, very potent, without a doubt. There's nothing bad I can say about that artillery armament. Next up, we got those torpedoes, and again, you may think, wow, hallucination. No, that is 12 torpedoes, 4 triple launchers. The range on them is kind of short, but it's not that big of a deal. With their speed being 62 knots, you can hit from maximum range with them without a problem, really, especially since you can fan them out and just do some weird, crazy pattern launching with 12 of them. So you don't need to ever worry about a torpedo acceleration because you don't want to shorten a 4.5 kilometer range. Their damage is pretty decent too, the 13,600. Again, down to low tier, so that's still a considerable damage. Enough damage to, pop another DD, so that's where that goes. Um, yeah, so definitely very, very offensive. Next, we've got the AA defense, which, again, destroyer, so really the question is what AA defense is this? Really isn't any. Um, so, a couple of machine guns, a couple of 76 millimeter guns, nothing go on there. This is where she does falter a little bit, is her maneuverability. She's only got a 34.5 knot top speed, so a little sluggish for the tier 5s, especially when you put up against like the Kamikaze, which easily, with a flag push is about 40 knots almost, which is kind of crazy. Turning circle of 730 meters is a bit, it's a bit bulky. But again, it's that long, slender hull shape that I mentioned early on. It makes it kind of rough for it to turn. So she's a little unmaneuverable. She's got a lot of hard-hitting firepower, but she herself doesn't really dance like the other DDs will. That 3.2 second rudder shift time is not bad, but again, it's that slow turn signal with the slow top speed. She will bleed speed in the turn. Um, so when you do a hard overturn, you're really going to slow down. You got to be mindful of that. But as I was talking about those 4.5 kilometer torpedoes earlier, this is why it's not so bad. 5.7 kilometer main detection range with Concealment Expert. She can sneak up on somebody and say boo, and they've only got a very short amount of time before you're charging at them. Hopefully speed boost up and get those torpedoes into them. So they're not that hard to use with her detectability. A 3.9 by air, again, not great when you consider that it will outrange anything you can do to really buff that AA, because even with a plus 20%, you're only getting 3.6, so you can't do any form of AA ambush, and you can get perma-spotted by a mindful CV. So 2 kilometer ashore, 2.5 in smoke, so nothing, nothing out of the ordinary on that. But now we're going to actually look at her modules and the upgrades. Again, we're down at tier 5, so we're not getting much there. Almost made a mistake there. The upgrades, I did the aiming system to tighten up the dispersion because all the ships at tier 5 are a little smaller. Other options really would be the main battery mod, but I personally think the rate of fire isn't worth the traverse speed buff. So if you feel that that's the way you want to go, more power to you, but me personally, I don't do it. And again, the AA, the DPS is so low that I can't, in good conscience, say that that's a good choice. Here, the two I would recommend are, again, the propulsion or the steering gear. I say this for every DD I've done. Both of those are very useful because if they get knocked out, you're in trouble. Even with Last Stand, you're losing maneuverability, you're losing speed, both of which are very important to destroyer survivability. So just keep that in mind. The slight chance of reduction of fire and flooding. Fire and flooding for a destroyer now, 30-second burn, isn't going to be a lot of damage. It's not really as much of a threat minus the detection increase. Then you've got the other options here. Main battery 1 or magazine modification 1 are both highly recommended. I kind of ran out of det flags, that's why there's a magazine mod 1 on here, but most of the time I will rock a main armaments 1. Again, it keeps your batteries from getting knocked out, keeps especially your torpedo tubes. But again, if you're feeling that that's not an issue, you're feeling like your guns are always online, but you're deading a lot, and you don't really want to just keep wasting flag after flag for games and pubs, by all means, slap that magazine mod on there, really drop that chance, it'll help you out. Obviously, the auxiliary armaments isn't going to do anything for you because you have so few AA guns and secondary batteries are non-existent that it's not going to be a thing. So, again, tier 5, not too much to talk about on that one. Now, the captain skills, kind of set up with a lot of the standardized, first run right now, as I only have a 10-point in her. But preventative maintenance, Last Stand. I did take the demolition expert because she's very gun heavy, and you want to get the fire chance up. That's why there was the 10%. It's demo expert. It's only 8% naturally, but it's good enough. Concealment expert, again, makes those torpedoes much easier to use. Other skills I would recommend, you could go with the advanced fire training to really push out that range. It's going to bump you up to a 10.8 kilometer range, which would be really good for a tier 5 DD, especially one with this thing's maneuverability. Being a little on the lackluster side, it'll help you dodge a little bit easier, increase the time it takes a shell to get to you. I highly recommend Adrenaline Rush to speed up the torpedo and gun reload. I mean, it's just too good of a skill to pass up a lot of times. Expert Marksman will also get you somewhere with this because the guns are slow traversing, so giving it that extra 2.5 degrees a second, gonna pay off. The only reason I haven't selected it yet is because, again, lower point captain, it's a ship I enjoy, but a ship I don't play too much. Last Stand's got to come first. I would not recommend the torpedo acceleration. Oops, sorry about that, I had the wrong one selected, because, again, your range is already so short, you really don't want to lose any off of it. Torpedo armament expertise. It's going to knock down the reload, but I personally think that the reload on this is fast and forgiving enough that that's not going to be too much of an issue. The inertial fuse, this one is a little bit interesting because you're not really going to have any problems with penetration as it is against the lower tier stuff because you've got the 130 millimeter guns and you do the whole divide that by 4 to give you, or sorry, divide by 4, that's German, this is Soviet, divide by 6, my apologies. And you're getting 21 millimeters of penetration with the IFHE. So that's going to be good enough to hammer any superstructure, the lower tier cruisers, bow and aft ends, things like that. But if you do put that IFHE on her, what you're getting is you're getting the ability to punish the tier 6 and 7 battleships and thicker plating sections on cruisers because you're generating 30% extra penetration. So that 30% extra penetration, with only losing 1% of your fire chance, is going to give you 6 more millimeters of penetration. It's bumping you up to a 27 millimeter pen, which would be giggly because the fact that you could pen the bow of, think ships like the Buffalo now, formerly the Baltimore. So its HE shells will do quite a bit of good. So the IFHE is something that you find that, if you really want to play that standoff game, you take the AFT and the IFHE, and at that point you're going to have to forgo the adrenaline rush, but you should be able to stand off and just pound away at a target and be a lot more forgiving. Your shells don't have to be as well placed. You don't have to wait for your turrets to traverse as much. So that'll eliminate some of that need for that expert marksman at that range because you don't have to be as precise. And it will probably give you a massive buff in your damage too without needing that lack of that extra precision. So, that being said, that's kind of the breakdown on our captain skills. And this is a bit of a short review. There's not too much to talk about sometimes at the lower tiers because a lot of things are a lot faster, and that's just the way that is. So the ultimate question is would I recommend purchasing her? I would absolutely do it. I was lucky enough to get this out of a Christmas crate, and I was so pleasantly surprised with it. I was a little skeptical at first seeing some of the maneuverability numbers, but I played some games in her, and I find that just as hard as she hits, it doesn't really matter because you can start delivering massive AP barrages to broadside cruisers. Your HE spam will keep battleships on fire. You can YOLO them with torpedoes a lot of the times and just be utterly soul crushing. And at the same time, it's fun to do it, but sometimes it doesn't work and you just kind of get splattered across the landscape because she's a little sluggish. But that's the joy of the ship is I pretty much always have fun playing her. Um, Succeed or fail, it's one of these ships where it's just a fun ride to do it, and it's a ship that again it's a lower tier ship, so you're dealing with some of the lower tier game mechanics, and that keeps it interesting when you've played a lot of the higher tier stuff. Would I recommend her for crew training? Possibly. For some of the higher tier Soviet ships, you could overlap that captain with some of the Soviet DD lines, I suppose, but I wouldn't think it would be the most perfect lineup. Credit grinding again, we're down to tier 5. She'll make a profit. She'll make a tidy profit, but if you're going to count on her to afford your tier 10s, it's going to be an uphill battle because for whatever reason, destroyers just don't seem to pay out as well as battleships. So I would say this is a ship you buy it for the fun. You take her out, you beat up some little destroyers, you pound on some cruisers, go after some battleships with it, and just enjoy it. So there you have it. If there's any other ships somebody would like me to prioritize, please leave me a comment, because otherwise, if I don't know what somebody wants my opinion, my take on, I will just do them as I see them. So again, this is the Okhotnik. It's a fun little boat. It's definitely worth the low price tag on it right now. So I just got to dress her up proper right quick. There we go. And hope to see people in game.